How's it going, Dragons? This is the legendary Dragon Duelist, and today I'm bringing you guys this Adamancipator deck profile. Since I didn't acknowledge it in the last video, we've recently hit 300 subscribers, which is great, but it also means that I also missed out on getting a 200 subscriber special, mainly because I'm slacking. At least I did a live stream for that, but I should have gotten out of videos, so hopefully I could get out a 100, 200, and 300 subscriber special. Anyways, let's get into this deck profile. I'm just going to start off right away with 3 copies of Researcher. This is pretty much the most expensive card that you need for this deck. I believe it's around $30 for a copy of one of these. Unfortunately, you do need it at 3. So this Rock Tuner is probably our best one because if we have a rock monster on the field, we can special summon it from the hand. It doesn't need to be an Adamancipator monster. It just needs to be a rock monster. You could just go ahead and special summon it from the hand right away. And of course, it reads special summon from the deck, so I mean, it's good. Next I have 3 Seeker. I did not place those on top of Researcher well at all. So this one, you do need an Adamancipator monster on the field, so that means it could be any of your tuners except for Seeker and also your extra deck Adamancipator monsters. I don't really have much to say about the Adamancipator tuners. I mean, this one you could special summon from the hand if your opponent controls a monster, and they all do the same thing, excavate the top 5 cards and special summon a rock from there. So they're just really great for building advantage, and a lot of times it is pretty easy to go through all of these in a single turn. Next we have Doki Doki. Now this card, this is one of your rock monsters. It's very good for starting combos, very good for extending combos. You can use it to get any level 2 or level 4 rock monster, depending on what you discard. Just remember that it has to special summon in attack mode, otherwise it would have to be in face down defense mode. So Doki Doki is level 2, so that means you can use it with Analyzer and to make Wrap Tight to extend your combos. And you can also use it with any of your level 2 tuners in order to make Herald, which is a very good Synchro monster in the extra deck for a negate. And it can also help you get a disruption before the 5th summon because of Herald, which this deck is pretty good at, and it helps play through a bunch of hand traps. I'm just gonna say Guardian because I don't want to try to pronounce this. I think it's Miru, something like that. Probably not the worst pronunciation. So Guardian, this one you could start off by normal summoning it, and now you're safe from at least one hand trap. It's a rock monster, of course, so if you excavate it, you could summon it from the excavations. Normally try to get this out pretty early, so that way you could play around the hand traps, of course. So level 4, you could summon it off of Doki Doki. So if you have this card and Researcher, normal summon this, special summon Researcher, and you're good at combo. Now if you want to keep this on your end board, you would have to keep a rock monster in your hand to reveal during the end phase, so just remember that. And also, since it does attribute itself, if you do play Leonite, you could bring this back from the graveyard once already using it, and it's not once per turn, so that's pretty good for a negate. Now I have 3 Supplier. This one is an extender that special summons from the hand when a rock monster is sent from the field to the graveyard. So this is relevant. When it's special summoned, you can add one of these guys to your hand. And the reason why that's relevant is because it gives you a rock monster to reveal at the end of your turn if you do want to make Guardian at the end of your combo. If you want to keep Guardian at the end of the combo, there you go, now you have a rock monster to reveal. Sometimes you're going to want extra cards to banish off of Roxy's effect to draw. And also, of course, it has synergy with Doki Doki, because you can add Guardian to your hand and then use Doki Doki, pitch Guardian. Now you can special summon Analyzer from the deck. Next up, you guys already knew this because I mentioned it, but I'm playing 3 Prank Kids Roxys. This is one of the best, or probably the best target that you could get off an excavation, because with the Prank Kids Link monsters, you could just use this to get a whole bunch of advantage and bodies on the board. And since it's a 3 of and you're going to excavate about 20 cards every turn, you're pretty much always going to see this and get a whole bunch of free advantage on your field. It's not the best to open unless you open Researcher also, and if you open Seeker and this, it's kind of a little weird to play with, but opening it is definitely not terrible at all. Next, for the final Prank Kids main deck card, I have Prank Kids Dropsies. This I felt was the best targets to play for Roxy's, as we're going to use Roxy's to special summon a Prank Kids from the deck, because it's a level 2 and it's water. And because it's level 2, that means you can use it to Synchro summon into Herald. And it also provides a water monster in your graveyard, because you do need a water monster in order to use the negate effect of Dragite. Some people are playing Lampsies instead of Dropsies. I like Dropsies more because of the situations that it could come up in. And I'm also not playing Leonite, so there's not a need of having a fire monster in my graveyard. Except I'm kind of slightly iffy on this card, but it's Madolche Petting Cessor. This is just a generic extender that you can use for your combos. At the start of the combo, you can special summon this, normal summon another level 4 rock, and then go into this guy, because it searches and it could help you start off your combos. Now, the reason why I'm kind of iffy on this card, and I might consider playing hand traps or maybe even a main deck Dark Ruler instead of this, is because you need to have no monsters in your graveyard to special summon it. So as a draw, or like top deck, like somewhere other than drawing it in your opening hand, it's just not the best. You could still normal summon it after that, but a lot of the times you're just going to normal summon anything else in your hand. That's just where I'm kind of iffy on that. And also, I don't have this, but there's a spell card that foolishes for rock monsters that also provides an extender. You could play that also if you want to. Anyways, I got 3 Parallel Exceed now. I really like this card. I feel like it's really underrated, because you could use it to go into a rank 4 disruption, or if you need to, you could use it to go into Gallant Granite in order to start off your combos. Like if you open Roxy's plus this, now you have combo. So it's just really good for having additional extenders and providing more disruption. So next, starting for the more hand trap side, I have 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This is of course just a generic hand trap. I am starting to grow away from this slightly because it's kind of low impact, and I've thought about switching it into the side deck instead, but figured that this would be a good option for a hand trap. And next, for the final main deck hand trap, I have 3 Gamma and a Driver. I'll put the Driver right there, so that way you can see it. So Gamma is just a good going second hand trap. It negates and destroys. And also, if you manage to use it on your turn, you just have additional extenders to play with. And this isn't terrible going first, because at some point in your combo you can make Lambda, spoiler warning for what I'm playing, and that helps you play through hand traps. So those were all the main deck monsters, and there's a lot of rock monsters. Pretty much half your deck is rock monsters, which means that with your Adamancipator monsters, you're pretty much never going to whiff off of them. It does happen, but very rare. For the spell cards, I have 3 Signs. Signs is really good, and I feel like it's especially more important now in order to stack like a Roxy's to the top of your deck, because of how powerful that card is, and just other cards making sure you don't whiff. And of course, just being a free Monster Reborn, which I also do play. I also have 1 Monster Reborn. And the thing about Adamancipator Signs and Monster Reborn is that in a way they essentially special summon a tuner monster from your deck. Because off of Halki Fibrax, yep, another spoiler warning for what I'm playing in extra deck, you can special summon one of these 2 guys, or Researcher isn't a guy, but you know. You can summon one of those 2, and then either Synchro summon or link off with it, and then special summon it back with one of these. Now its effects aren't negated, and you could use it to extend your combos further, so I really like them for that. Next, the final card in the main deck, I do have 1 Called by the Grave, mainly just to play around hand traps, so there you have it for the spells. Next, I'm going to go into the extra deck, starting off with the Synchro monsters. I have 1 copy of Dragite. This is an interruption and also removal, so you can make this on your first turn and negate a spell or trap, and you're pretty much always going to have a water monster in your graveyard because of Halki Fibrax and Prank Kids Dropsies. And it's just really good to put up on your first turn and use it as a follow-up to break your opponent's board. Next, there's Raptite. This is a great card to continue with your combos. it's pretty much going to be the first or second Synchro monster you make, because sometimes you're going to make Herald before. It's really good, of course, as just a combo piece. It's an extra deck monster that special summons from the deck. And unlike the tuner monsters, unlike these monsters, it can summon other tuner monsters, so you can use it to summon Analyzer, Seeker, Researcher, and then if you haven't used any of those yet, you can use those to extend your combos even more. So this means like even a single Researcher has the potential to just spiral into a full board. And one more thing about Raptite, if you do have a Doodle-Doo in your graveyard, you can use its effect to pretty much essentially act like a DD Crow, going into the Synchro monsters more, Warlord Savage Dragon. This is an Omni Negate, and we play with a lot of Link monsters. There's, in fact, more Link monsters in this deck than Synchro monsters. So because of the use of Link monsters, Savage is just a good negate to go into. Next we have Herald of the Arc Light. This is a Synchro monster that you can go into pretty early depending on how your plays go out. This is a combo deck that isn't very linear at all, so you don't really know what you're going to do. You pretty much know what your end board is going to be most of the time, but you don't know how the entire combo is going to go throughout because of the hands you draw and the cards you excavate. So that's just an option to go into early in order to play through disruptions. And if your opponent doesn't have any hand traps and you use this, now you just have an extra negate on the board. And also a pretty cool interaction with this card and Ash Blossom. Oh shoot, I didn't bring out the ultra rare feat Ash Blossom. Give me a second. And Ash Blossom. Okay, so if you use these cards together with Ash Blossom, I have the feat pick now. If you use Ash Blossom, you discard it and it actually gets banished, so that means your opponent can't use a card like Called by the Grave in order to protect themselves from it. That's not going to come up very often because the situation would have to be you summoning Herald, drawing Ash, and your opponent also drawing Called by, but it's just a pretty cool interaction to know. There's all the Synchro monsters, so I'll start off by going into Link monsters now. I have one Almirage. Because of cards like Adamancipator Signs, this becomes additionally more important to run because Researcher has under 1000 attack. So if you open Researcher and Adamancipator Signs, before this would be just luck without Almirage, and if you whiffed off of Researcher, then your combo would just end there and you would hard pass. But now because of Almirage, you can link summon this into Almirage, activate Signs, summon Researcher, and then stack your deck. Now going into some more of the Prank Kids portions of the deck, I have one cat. One of the Prank Kids cat. This one just acts as a Link monster, a Link 1. So when you excavate Roxy's, you make this, banish a card, draw one, special summon Dropsies from the deck, and then you could Link summon with it into the bird. And also, I would just like to say real quick, just a quick rant, I don't want to call this Adamancipator Prank Kids, because the Prank Kids engine is essentially as big as the Dragoon engine. There's just 2 extra deck monsters, and there's 4 main deck monsters. The Prank Kids package is mainly just Roxy's as a good card to excavate, to give you more extenders. There's the rant, of course this is just a Link 2, I haven't really talked about the bird much. It's just a Link 2 that you make with the cat and Dropsies that you special summon from the deck, and then now you can special summon from the deck again. Now going into more Link 2s, another expensive one is Crystron Halqifibrax. This is a Link monster that special summons a tuner from the deck. It's just a very good extender. Not much of a problem right now, probably will get banned eventually. Eventually, I believe this card will get banned, but not right now, probably won't happen. There's just so many cards that got banned because of this, but not much of a problem. If you also want to, you could play Synchro monsters like Formula Synchron or Desert Locust in order to use its second effect, but I decided not to use those ones because it just kind of clogged up my extra deck space. But if you do, you can also make IP Masquerena along with keeping Halqifibrax on your board, and then use those to go into another Link monster for disruption, because Masquerena, this Link summons a monster on your opponent's turn. There are several targets you can play for it, and it also gives the Link monster some protection. A lot of the times also you don't really make this on your going first board, it's not a requirement, but what it does provide is another disruption to go up on a follow-up turn. You want some more like just follow-up turns and follow-up plays or cards to go into. So that way we're not just in a super linear game state. Now for the final link to, as you already know about, a Psyframe Lord Lambda. This one is just a summon just in case you use Gamma on your turn, or if you just want to go into this generically if you drew Gamma on your first turn in order to play through hand traps. And that's pretty much all it does, because it lets you use Gammas from your hand even if you control a monster. And then you could just use it to link off with afterwards if you don't need it anymore. And also if you do like bluffing, this helps with bluffing. You could just make it as a final board piece, maybe along with Masquerena, and now your opponent thinks that you have Gamma in the hand and they try to play around it. Normally, I wouldn't make that play, and normally I would just go into some other disruption that would help me more, but it's just an option for you. Next I have Nightmare Unicorn for the Only Link 3 monster. It's a target to go into with IP Masquerena. You just discard one, shuffle a card that your opponent controls into the deck. So it's non-destruction removal. It's a good board breaker for going second, and that's just pretty much all I have to say about that. I'm going to go into the Link 4s. I have Appaloosa. This is a really good card for disruption that you're going to want to try to make all the time. Sometimes you can make it with IP Masquerena, but most of the time you're going to use Halki Fibrax, and there it is, the bird. Halk and the bird. In order to make this card, most of the time it's going to have 2 to 3 negates on it. Sometimes you can make 4, and that's just all I have to say about that. So it's really good. It helps provide most disruption for you. Now since I don't have Access Code Talker, I'm replacing it with Boral Sword, which I do have. This is another good card to OTK with. If you do have Access Code Talker, definitely play that over this card. The main reason why I'm not playing Access Code Talker is that I don't have it and reprints are coming soon, so why would I buy it when it's getting reprinted soon? But if you did have Access Code Talker, you could use Unicorn to link summon into it and make it gain 3,000 attack points, making it a pretty powerful monster, and then just being able to banish a bunch of cards for going second OTK power. So Access Code Talker, I would say, is better than Boral Sword. If you don't have it right now, honestly just wait for the reprints. Megatons are coming up, it's reprint season soon. Next is for the XCs. There's only 2, one being Gallant Granite. This is a really good XCs monster that helps you start off your turns, which is part of the reason why, actually the only reason why you're going to want to play Petting Cessor or another generic extender like that. Since it's a rock monster that searches a rock monster, you could search Researcher, Special Summon Researcher, and then combo off there. So pretty simple for that. Next is Abyss Dweller. You can make this if you don't draw Parallel Exceed, but most of the time when you draw Parallel Exceed you're making this. And it's really good for disruption, and a lot of decks are going to rely on using cards in the graveyard. Use this against Drytron, but you summon this card and your opponent's locked out of activating effects in their graveyard. So that was the whole extra deck. Now is for the side deck, which is getting kind of tight now, and since there's so much diversity, there's not going to be like a set side deck that's going to be very good for every deck, so I'll just show you what I have right now. I have 3 Nibirus because it works very well with Adamancipators because it's a rock monster. You can actually special summon it off of Raptite, and if you excavate it off of Dragite, now you just have an additional card to bounce. And also, if you're playing against like a random rogue deck that's really weak to Nibiru, or just a deck in general that's weak to Nibiru, you can make Gallant Granite and search Nibiru. The downside about searching is that now your opponent knows about it and they'll try to play around it. But if you do it towards the start of your combo, just saying, a lot of people forget about stuff like that. So, it's very likely that your opponent can forget about that, but just because the rocket has a lot of synergy with the deck, you don't necessarily have to play it if you want to. Next I have 3 Drolls because I feel like it's going to be very powerful with Drytrons and Sky Strikers coming into the metagame. Also, Dragon Link is still going to be very popular and still very powerful. Definitely not dead at all. I don't know why people would even think it's dead for a little bit. That's it for the hand traps. But there's also one called Contact C, which you might know about. That is a very good card to play. I don't have it, and I wouldn't have gotten it to put it in here just because of how tight the space is getting. But Contact C is really good against a whole bunch of decks. It kills strikers, You know, it kills Drytrons. It really hurts prank kids. Context C would be a good option to play if you wanted to play it, but I don't have it in right now. Dino Wrestler Pankratops. I was thinking about main decking this because it's just so powerful and provides a going second option. Better in the side deck, I'd say, for going first combo deck. There's not much I have to say about Pankratops. You could summon it, veto from monster, pop a card. It's just really good. Next, 3 copies of Dark Ruler. I would still play Dark Ruler over Droplet even if I had Droplet in this deck because I just like to play with the cards in my hand. I like to draw my entire hand and spew everything out on there. So Dark Ruler, since you don't have to discard cards or send any cards on the field to the graveyard, it's just really good for getting rid of your opponent's disruption. Since Drytron is such a weird deck to play against, like they still will have hand traps in their hand, so you won't get rid of all their disruptions, but now you can play at least. You can at least play, because now they're going to have like 2. They're going to have 2 hand traps, like 2 monster negate effects, instead of 5 from Ultimateness. Next up I have Twin Twisters. I was thinking about Cosmic, but I think Twin Twisters is just going to be better now. The main reason that I had for playing Cosmic was for decks like Eldritch that would use their trap cards in the graveyard. And there is still Sky Strikers, which recurred the spell cards from their graveyard with Kagari and would like to have spells in their graveyard, but this just gets rid of so many more cards. And prank kids normally will set 2 back row, like if they set Pandemonium and Tikaboo. You can use this in the standby phase, and that just turns off a bunch of their disruptions. Next, I have Harpies. This is just a Raigeki for spell and traps. It's really good removal. A lot of back row decks won't play any negate back row like Solemn Judgment, so if you just shotgun this, most of the time they'd be forced to just get rid of everything, and you could just play freely. And another card that's a pain for back row decks, which is a trap card, is Red Reboot. It's a counter trap, so your opponent can't respond to it unless it's with another counter trap. You can activate it straight away from their hand, and this is assuming you're going second, so now you're pretty much just going to OTK. And also, since you have cards like Dragite, once all their cards are set, you could just return all of those traps back to their hand, and now they can't use it on their turn. It just really gets a pain to trap decks. Anyways, that's all I have for Adamancipators, and I will probably put in a rock combo video eventually, perhaps maybe a duel with this deck. Just let me know what you want for it. And also, this is the part where I simp for subscribers and say, hey, there's so many of you not subscribed, do it, we're at 300, let's get to 1,000. Like it, share, join Discord, you know everything. I should get Researcher a friend real quick. There, you can have Seeker and you can have Analyzer. That's really it. I don't really have anything else to say. No, nothing else to drag out this video longer than it needs to. Anyways, okay, farewell, goodbye, thanks for watching, have a good day.